Here's a few more parts for our bad parts series. Couple things that just happen, other things you want to watch out for. Here is a forward ring gear. Now this one suffered from a burn up clutch pack. When that happens, those frictions, when the material gets burned off the frictions, they turn into basically steel rings with the hardened teeth on the ID. And what happens when they get superheated, they'll start warping and then they grab onto the ring gear and they don't let go. And then the rest of them burn up and then you're basically stuck. Sometimes it gets so hot that a steel core from a friction will fuse itself to a plate steel. But most of the time you just flat out lose forward before that happens. So this is a common thing in the 4R. That's why we spend a lot of time modifying the forward drum and trying to alleviate these problems. Now here you can see what happens. This ring gear is not reusable. Now if we look, I'm actually not sure what the nomenclature is for a spline, so we'll just borrow the nomenclature for a gear. Here's a little diagram. This is from Shigley Mechanical Engineering Design, 5th edition, figure 13-5, spur gear nomenclature. So what we want to, you don't have to worry about the radiuses or anything like that, but the nomenclature, I'm going to use here is the top lands and the faces. So what happens when those frictions warp and they grab on, they're actually really hard to pull off. Like you need to, get a hammer and some sort of punch in there or cut them off. Usually I cut them with a wheel till they're almost cut through, and then I put a chisel in that cut and give it a couple taps, and then it just cracks the rest of the way. That's an easy way to get them off without damaging your ring gear, but your ring gear is most likely destroyed, but sometimes they're not. This one is. You can see how it's shiny on the top land here. That's normally black, and it normally does not contact anything. So what happened is these the frictions, after they warped, they were getting pushed around on here, and it's not even flat. If you run your finger over it, it's very it's very wavy. It's got some peaks and valleys, like something chewed up on it. So another failure that you got to watch out for these, anytime you take one out, you got to inspect it. Now if you look at the face here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 teeth marks. That's where the frictions, when this clutch pack locks, the frictions do this and they grab onto the ring gear on this face. This one's actually not too bad. When it gets really bad, it can also grab the frictions and hold them in place and keep them from releasing, and then you wind up with burnt clutch packs and all kinds of other crap like happened here. So there's actually two things wrong with this ring gear. Either way, it can't be repaired. Sometimes when you get the bites on the sides, if they're not too bad, you can clean them up, you can smooth them over with a wheel. But usually they're too deep, and it's just not worth the risk. So I just chuck them. I have a whole pile here of good ones. So that is not a usable part. Another thing here, a customer a couple weeks ago, he's like, "You're not using the gray pump seal, are you?" And I was like, "What's wrong with the gray pump seal?" I was like, "What's wrong with gray?" He's like, "Oh, that's the silicone one that lets go." I was like, "Well, how do you know it's gray? They're only gray?" I mean, silicone can only be gray? No, silicone can be any color. And the better Viton, which is a higher durometer material, a little bit stiffer, that can come in any color. So if you're watching out for and avoiding a gray pump seal, you're missing the boat on that. This is actually the silicone one, and yes, it is gray, but guess what? Here's a dark blue one, also silicone. So, hey, I mean, I've seen red. The color is irrelevant. So what you need to do is you need to feel it. This is real soft. real soft, feels just like you would expect silicone to feel. And they don't last for a little while, but as soon as there's any kind of heat or pressure build up, they start to let go, and you'll wind up with a leak up there. So anyway, it's something to avoid. We use the Viton here, and I'm not going to tell you what color they are because the colors change. Moving along, here is a accumulator body that I recently tore down, and the modulator valve was stuck. It was stuck in here. Basically, the bore inside of this part here of the casting was holding it on. And what happened to this guy is, you can see well, you can see the marks I used to pull it on. I had to put some heat on here. I had to really grab this thing and rip it out. But you can see these marks here. That happened when it went in. So the guy who installed this had trouble getting this valve in, forced it in, jammed it, caused unpredictable pressure problems, line modulation pressure problems, which only go to the 3 accumulators, where his brand new Transgo tugger kit just blew itself to pieces. The 3 larger outer springs are not here. They're fine. But the next level spring, you can kind of see, maybe you can see this, how this one was bent. This one's also bent, but inside, the smaller ones are what you see here. These things broke into a million pieces. They're stuck in there. This is all trash. Not Transgo's fault at all, but whoever put this in, and I could tell by when I tore the transmission down, I could tell that it was rebuilt by one person, and then somebody swapped in a tugger, either installed the tugger kit in the accumulator, or a lot of guys mail ordered these things and swapped it in. This guy, whoever did this, did not deburr this bore. He didn't deburr any of them. I always do that here. Had he done that, this would have been fine. This customer would have been happy, and I never would have met him, because this is what brought him to me. All I had to do was deburr this and put in a new valve. And this valve is going to go to the trash. It's too it's all chewed up, so you don't know what's going to happen. These are anodized aluminum. What that means, anodizing is a surface hardening, and it's usually accompanied by a color. These happen to be dark gray. So this is harder. The surface of this is harder than the soft casting. So that's why these valves wear out the soft castings, and you wind up with little burrs and bumps and stuff in there that grab onto the valves, such as the 2-3 valve. So got this one cleaned up. It's actually working perfectly. Vacuum test is very high, so this is a really good accumulator body now that it's fixed. The rest of this stuff is trash. Now here's a DTR. You see how it's nice and shiny and clean and black? Well, that's because somebody painted it. These are usually like a dark, dirty yellow, painted both sides, painted in here, and you can also see where somebody before that had painted it blue. So you can see blue. So what that means is this has been around. I don't know how old it is, but it is not a Ford DTR. The Ford DTRs have the little Ford oval right here. It will not pass. I'll hook it up right now and I'll show you, but this will not work on a transmission, and it is not repairable, so this is going into the trash. But let's put it on a transmission here and see what it looks like. Alright, I've got, here's a unit that's on its way out the door this afternoon, but I figured I'm just going to hook it up here. I'm in the middle of cleaning a whole bunch of others, and I don't have anything pretty enough for prime time. So here we go, got that one on here. I got the marks lined up. Now let's see what happens when I test it with the gizmo here. So we're in park on pins 2 and 3. That should be closed. I've got a resistor reading here, the 270 resistors in play. So let's go to The next one should be closed, closed, closed. That's open, 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 closed. So we got some issues with park. I'm not going to go too far. The battery's about to die. Here's reverse. It's got the 270, that's correct. Now remember, there's like huge tolerances on resistors, so if you have anywhere from 250 to 290, you're fine. This is really hard with one hand. Okay. Okay, that should be closed. Closed. Alright, that should be closed. I don't know what the hell's going on here. That looks more like a intermittent closed and open contact. Open, open, closed, open. Alright, so we got problems with park and reverse. So let's try to figure it out. Let's adjust this. I'm just going to see if I can get this to read closed anywhere in park by rotating this. So I'm moving it. Yeah, see, I got the that resistor's in play. Anywhere I go. For a second there, it looked like it was letting go, but it's not. Yeah, so I can't even get park to be correct. So I'm not even going to bother with any of the other ones. This one's trash. Alright, well there you have it. That's this edition of Bad Parts, episode 2. Stay tuned possibly for more.